Okay, start now.
All right, we're recording now.
We're live.
We're live.
I would like to welcome everyone to another episode of Pride in the Living Room, Jewmos edition. So a quick reminder, Pride in the Living Room was founded by the Israeli LGBT taskforce Agudah in memory of the 2009 Tel Aviv Gay Center shooting and the Jerusalem Pride Parade stabbing in 2015. And this project arose from a need to tell and share LGBT Jewish stories from across the globe. And I've been inspired to bring this initiative back home to my own organization, Jewmos. And that has led me to tonight, where I'm inviting Gabe all the way from the States to share your story. Over to you, Gabe.
Great, thanks, Jared. Yeah, I wanted to thank you for inviting me to share my story. As I was telling you earlier, while I'm out of the closet and, all my friends and my I'd never really spoken about it in a public forum like Facebook or YouTube, but I really felt it was important to do so, precisely because I think it's important for people to get to know stories of people they know, and to kind of familiarize themselves with kind of the story of a familiar person. And so I thought that was a great opportunity. And I think in particular, so I'm originally from Colombia. And I have a sense, I may be wrong about this, but I have a sense that the Jewish communities in Latin America are a few years behind in their acceptance of LGBT people. And so I think that this is particularly important. And I know that your organization's in Australia, but maybe the video will make its way to the Jewish communities in Latin America. So I think I'll start, telling my story. I think I want to speak a little bit about kind of the interaction of my Jewish identity and my gay identity and how those kind of interplayed throughout my life. And I think, sometimes they kind of complemented each other and sometimes they were in conflict. And I think in particular as a gay Latin Jew, I think the story is somewhat unique. So I was born, like I said, in Colombia, in Bogota, Colombia. And the Jewish community there is traditional, but not very religious. And I think the culture there and maybe the Jewish community as well, it was kind of like what you would consider socially conservative, traditional when I was growing up there. I always had a huge affinity for Judaism. I think in my family, I probably had the strongest affinity. I remember as a kid, I used to tell my parents that I wanted to be a rabbi and have 16 kids. The 16 kids goal I've since abandoned. It seems like a lot of work, but maybe a few kids are still in cards. And yeah, there was something about kind of the communal life, the Jewish tradition, the holidays that was always, made me feel alive and made me feel super connected. And I, kind of I never really questioned my sexuality until I was 11. We moved to the U.S. when I was 10 years old. And for all I knew, I was going to lead kind of like a normal life, just like my kind of, I remember thinking like, kind of have a family and, live in a Jewish community. And then we moved to the U.S. and, that coincided kind of the time when we moved coincided with when I was becoming an adolescent. So there was maybe some confusion about changes that were happening. were they due to me moving to the US, or were they due to just growing up? And I remember I started questioning my sexuality. It was kind of a very discreet moment. I was home. I was feeling ill, and my parents had gone to a bar mitzvah, and I guess it must have been Gay Pride Month, and there was a lot of TV shows about gay stuff. Like CNN had coverage of the parades, and HBO maybe had like movies about Oscar Wilde. And for some reason, I just started kind of like, I just got this fear that I might be gay, but I didn't really like think there was nothing that I consciously knew that I could base it on. And eventually and that kind of anxiety was really strong for a few months, and then it kind of like maybe subsided a little bit, but it was always in the background. And I, and I guess for the next, kind of 10 years, it was a real big struggle on and off. Like there would be times where it was really, really, kind of intense anxiety and questioning and fear. And then there were times where I was able to kind of put it under the rug, so to speak. And I think, kind of what's interesting in the context of this conversation is that a lot of the questions that I had in my mind is, how can I be Jewish in the sense that I had, like kind of the stereotype that I had in my mind, and be gay? Like those two things were not compatible for me. And those were kind of like one of the hardest things to reconcile in my mind. Then so I was in high school, and I guess in high school, I was kind of just living with the fear, but not really willing or wanting to do anything about it. And eventually I went to college, and in college, I kind of decided to face the fear. And, maybe now I'm not really communicating like kind of the degree of darkness that I went through, but I guess for many years. Still there? Looks like we froze for a bit. All right, we're back. And in college, I had actually distanced myself from Judaism for a little bit because I felt like it was, too much in conflict with being gay, even though at the time I didn't actually think I was gay. I was just afraid that I would be gay, and I didn't allow myself to really to really entertain that possibility, because it was such a painful idea. And in college, something interesting happened, which is that I decided to kind of take the attitude of like, being gay can't be really so much worse than being constantly anxious about the possibility of being gay. And while that was going on, I also ended up getting closer to certain Jewish groups at the university that were teaching a lot of like Jewish wisdom, and I found really fascinating. Kind of the beauty of Shabbat, the beauty of a lot of the rituals and a lot of the traditions, and kind of how they are imbued with wisdom about human nature and about human psyche. And I was I actually became somewhat more observant when I was in college, and ultimately, I guess through a lot of therapy and introspection, decided to come out. Actually, my younger brother came out first, and I came out as a kind of side effect of that. I guess that story I'll save for another time, but ultimately I came out, and I guess since then it's been kind of continuing the process of learning to accept myself, and I think, you know, maybe the first couple of years after coming out, that was something that was harder, but then it became easier. And I think, you know, the Jewish experience was always parallel. Like, there were these Orthodox rabbis, like very Orthodox rabbis that I was friends with, and I ultimately, you know, kind of wanted to be able to. I really enjoyed what happened in their circles, you know, in terms of Shabbat dinners and like the joy of Judaism, and there was a lot of conflict in my mind of how I was going to able. And I guess, you know, the way that that's been resolved in a way has been that through self-love, I've kind of just been like, okay, well, you know, to the degree that I feel comfortable in these circles, I'm going to be a part of it. And to the degree that I don't, I'm not going to be a part of it. One thing that I've been really committed to is truth and transparency. And I think that has helped other people also accept me for who I am, right? Like I refuse to be a part of any circle where I have to hide who I am. But I also don't try to stay away from circles that I'm afraid might reject me for who I am. Like, you know, if it should happen, I guess I'm not going to be the one to reject myself. Like, I'll let other people reject me. But really, that I haven't felt like that happened anywhere, to be honest. Of course, I guess you know, there've been places where it hasn't been celebrated, but I think in most places I haven't really felt rejected. So I guess that's kind of the story. Maybe I'll tell a few anecdotes as well. You know, after I came out, I forget exactly the timing, but I came out when I was 23, and then maybe a year or two later, I went to Israel, and I was there for the Tel Aviv Gay Pride Parade, and at some point they had the more religious groups marching, and they were playing like Hasidic music or whatever, music that I had grown up with in Colombia, even though it's not a Hasidic community, but, you know, the music was kind of like present. And like, that was one of the most meaningful experiences for me. I remember like tearing up because it was like finally kind of like the symbolic merging of the two identities, which for so long had been in conflict for me. And that was a beautiful kind of experience. What else can I tell you? You know, and I think, you know, part of why I wanted to do this is because there's a question mark in my mind as to, so I've been living in the US for the last 20 years, and, you know, here I generally don't feel like my sexuality is an issue at all. And I've been getting curious to explore what it's like in the communities where I grew up in Colombia and other Latin American countries, in the Jewish communities in these Latin American countries, in South Florida, where there's a huge Latin American community. And I've seen, I guess I haven't pursued it very strongly, but I've seen certain videos of some rabbis kind of like being open about it. And part of my desire to do this was to maybe help open up that conversation. And you know, I'm curious as to what conversations are happening more lively and more active. So I guess that's kind of like the story I have. I don't know if you have any questions, if you think that there's anything that, you know, maybe people watching this are going to be curious about. I know we're not doing it live, so they can't ask questions now, but maybe you can stand in for some potential viewers.
I've been adamantly listening to your story. There may be some moments where my screen freezes. If it does, then keep talking, because we'll still be capturing your amazing words. So just to follow on from what you said at the end, in regard to the Latin American Jewish LGBT community, or how the Latin American Jewish and Latin American LGBT communities are reaching out to each other. Um, in the States, where you are, where you have found home, as it were, have you met other people of Latin American descent in the States, and what's that experience been like for you?
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm being clear. I guess I'm referring to specifically Latin American Jews. Obviously there's a lot of um, activity in Latin American non-Jewish. I guess there's a lot of groups and organizations that deal with LGBT issues in Latin America and in the U.S. with Hispanic people. But just for clarity, when I'm talking about this, my curiosity recently has been a lot about the Jewish community, Latin American Jewish communities, and I have met a few people, and my sense is that, like I said, there's kind of conversations to be had. Like, for example, I actually met this guy who is my dad's age, and he, when I told him I was from Colombia, he was very kind of scared that I had, maybe recognized him, or that I would tell anyone about him. And it kind of struck me and he was very open where he lived, but he was very scared that anyone back in Colombia would find out. My sense is that the Colombian community, while maybe not doesn't celebrate LGBT issues, is not, I don't think they would kind of be persecutory in any way, but I think that celebrating these issues or embracing them strongly is important, because this guy is in this, kind of his own fantasies that he would be strongly rejected, and it's not the case. I don't think it's the other people from Venezuela, from Mexico. I think the Mexican community is a little bit more organized, but yeah, my general sense is that, like I told you, I've never spoken about this in a public forum, and I think that that's kind of more of a trend in Latin American Jewish communities, and so I think it's important to have more conversations. Like, I'm not really, interested in I guess I don't find the flash of like your typical gay pride parades that appealing, but I do think it's important to have conversations about it, and to be able to not live in fear, and not even not just fear, but not live in any sort of having to hide, or having to kind of mumble between your lips about any part of you. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's really important for people around the world to hear and to actively engage um, with the struggles of the Latin American Jewish LGBT community. So thank you so much for offering that perspective. Yeah, no, really beautiful answer. Uh, so you mentioned being in Israel for the Israeli Pride Parade. Um, was this just after you came out?
Yeah, it must have been. Yeah, it must have been like maybe actually that year, because I came out a few months before graduating college, and then I went to Israel that year, that summer.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess another point I wanted to make about just like uh there's organizations that try to unite gay Jews and in America, and you have one in Australia. I heard one of the videos that the Agudah did, that was after which that inspired you to create this series. There was this one guy in LA who runs an organization focused on Persian Jews, and I think that part of what I would like to see for Latin American LGBT Jews to get together, because I think that just like with every other identity, there are unique aspects of like the Latin American Jewish culture, and I feel like people have to choose whether you want to be in the Latin American Jewish setting or a LGBT setting. There aren't any like settings where all those things can come together, and like that would be something that I would like to have happen.
Mm. I know exactly who you're referring to. Uh, if it's who I'm thinking of, his name is Arya.
That's right. Yep.
And I know him very well because we went to Argentina last year for a trip run by his organization, uh, JQ, and also JDC Entwine.
Uh-huh.
And we actually we were able to visit. My Spanish pronunciation is horrible, but it was called Judíos Argentinos Gays,
Okay.
something like that. And they actually sit on the Buenos Aires Jewish Community Council.
Uh-huh.
That was a really wonderful experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I can definitely understand what you're saying. Um, to be able to merge all three of those identities together. So in your personal world, do you find yourself more drawn to any of those three spaces, and how do you find the points of the triangle intersecting?
So it's a good question, and um, I guess I've always felt like um, there's kind of like a missing element, right? So I lived in New York for 6 years, and obviously there's a huge gay Jewish community there, and there's a lot of different groups and activities, and I really enjoyed a lot of those groups and activities, but in a way there's like that missing element, right? Like the that there's some aspect that of you that these people don't understand, and that how awesome it would be to be able to relate to somebody in that full way. And similarly, I lived in Miami for I don't know, 8 years when I was a kid, and I haven't been back too much, but I guess Miami's, I would say, one of the centers of Latin Jewish life these days. In Miami for extended periods of time in a while, but my sense is that um, there must be gay Latin Jews in Miami. If there's like, I don't know, there must be at least 50,000 Latin Jews in Miami, so there must be some gays. I know there are a few, in fact, but in the spaces that I've been to, it doesn't feel like it's kind of it's as though it doesn't exist at all. And so that's something that um, I'm going to change.
I think anyone who watches this video will be really inspired by your words. Thank you for sharing. You mentioned earlier, I know you said this is a story for another time, but something you said really fascinated me. You mentioned that your younger brother came out,
Right.
and then you came out soon after that. I've had many conversations with people where they have multiple siblings within the same family who have come out
Mm-hmm.
within the LGBT family. Um, so can you talk a little bit about that experience?
What part of the experience? The having uh, a, a sibling who's also gay, or the coming out experience, or both?
Uh, if you could talk through both, that would be wonderful.
Okay. Yeah. So at first, so he's my younger brother, and he was very brave to come out. I think that we grew up in a family that was not very religious, but I think coming from Latin America, somewhat socially conservative. And these communities are small communities, and I feel like there's kind of these very strong ideas of what life should look like. And so I grew up with those ideas, and I embraced those ideas, and I had to kind of divorce those ideas as I learned about my sexuality. And I guess I thought that it wouldn't be easy for my parents to learn that I was gay, and so I actually hadn't been planning on telling them. I didn't know when I was going to tell them, and I didn't know my brother was gay either. But he had the courage to come out, and kind of in the same dinner I came out, because my parents asked me, how I felt about my brother being gay, and I was like, I'm fine, whatever. And more questions came, and eventually I told them I was gay too, and I wasn't planning on it at all. But at first it was I guess when this happened, I was he seemed pretty comfortable, and in a way he kind of helped me out of the closet, and was kind of like a support. And then after that, it's been actually pretty great, because I can't, and I haven't really known what being out and gay in my family alone is, because I guess for a long time I thought it was just me, but I wasn't out. And then when I came out, he was already out, and so in a way it doesn't feel as lonely as I would imagine it might feel if I was the only one, right? Like, I would imagine that being the only gay sibling in a family, you would somewhat feel like different in another way. And so we're three brothers, so 2 out of 3 are gay. So it just feels kind of like not alone, and in a way, we're the majority.
I think that's really beautiful to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so talk us through what role Judaism plays in your life today. So at the beginning you spoke about this story of self-discovery and questions and the darkness and pushing through all of that to
Yeah.
come to the place where you are today. So what does Judaism mean for you these days?
Yeah. So for example, like Shabbat dinner for me is sacred, right? So like every Friday night, I'll have Shabbat dinner, and I also, to a degree, keep Shabbat, and I think it's kind of, I don't know if this applies to everyone, but I feel like since I started keeping Shabbat, it's kind of like a hack for like mental health, the ability to like disconnect, and that's what I see in Judaism a lot, just kind of this wisdom that like, you might be reading in like self-help books in like a secular bookstore, or you might be learning about in your meditation class or whatever, but there's so much wisdom in this tradition that we've inherited that I really value it. And so that's kind of from um, yeah, kind of like from a structuring your life way, but also there's this huge emotional connection, you know, when you're in a Shabbat dinner and you're a little tipsy on the wine and you're singing song Shabbat, you know, Jewish wedding, and you're dancing the hora, or like there's just this joy that I feel in Jewish spaces that is, you know, it's a very emotional thing, um, and I would, you know, I wouldn't give it up for anything. Like it's kind of like one of those things that I'm really clear that you know, whatever I end up, however I end up living my life, like that has to be a part of it.
Are there
Um,
any? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and like, you know, for I really enjoy it. I go to like classes about you know, these types of wisdom, like character development, or I just finished this like a 5 class series taught by one of a yeshiva in Jerusalem, um, and you know, teaches you a lot about kind of the meaning behind certain rituals, and you know, I find it really meaningful and really really orienting, um, and so yeah, it's a huge part.
Are there any songs from your upbringing in Colombia that you can teach us?
Are there any songs? Um, so there's a lot of songs. I think there's one in particular which I think, I don't remember exactly, that was the one playing in the Tel Aviv parade when I was there. And you know, I grew up listening to it in Hebrew day school in Colombia, which you might be familiar with it. It's I think it's a Chabad song. It's a Mashiach, Mashiach, Mashiach. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Mashiach,
Jesus,
Mashiach, Mashiach. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and so I grew up, you know, hearing the song in school, um, and so, like, you know, there's kind of this thing that it wakes up inside me, especially, you know, when I heard in this parade, it was like, whoa, you know, finally kind of um, you know, these two things coming together that I thought, these two worlds coming together that I didn't think could ever be together.
that's so amazing to hear. Are there any? I'm just curious. Are there any Spanish language Jewish songs that you know?
Spanish language Jewish songs. So I remember the rabbi in Colombia used to translate a lot of these songs. Um, and I'm trying to remember if I could, uh, um, if I can remember any in Spanish. There's this one in Ladino, which, you know, used to make appearances once in a while. Un Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. There's that one, and then which there was also um, the school. So I went to a Hebrew day school in Colombia, and they had a song that also I feel like super emotionally tied to. Let's see if I can remember. Man, can't remember, can't recall it right now, but another time.
Thank you for sharing. Um, uh, I've lost my trail of thought. um, that's right. So you've spoken about how Judaism.
All right, yeah, sorry, I got the song. I think this was the
Uh,
song. I think this is the anthem of the school. It might be my mom's school. I don't remember, but it goes, Escuchad la voz del tamboril de Israel, la voz juvenil. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. I think that was the anthem of my school.
you're giving me flashbacks to my own school anthem.
In
Da,
per-
da, 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 da. Why is Carmel for ani ve'ata? It's based on a history of thousands of years. It's part of our mishpacha. It's a
Nice.
whole
Is that in Perth?
back and forth, yeah.
Nice.
Ah, so many memories. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I hope to hear the full 30-piece orchestra version, Gabe, and the and the Colorado Symphony Orchestra playing that for us.
One day, after COVID.
So you've spoken about how Judaism plays a role, an active role in your life these days. I was just wondering if you could talk us through how your gayness plays in your life these days.
Yeah, I mean, so I date men. That's pretty much sums it up. Yeah, and I don't know that there's much more to it. Like, I'm attracted to men mostly, and and yeah, um, I I'm pretty sure I want to form a family with a guy. Um, Plays a role.
I have one final question, if
And
that's okay.
I'll give you another piece, which I think is kind of goes beyond this, but I think that obviously it was really hard growing up and coming to terms with my sexuality, but I think having gone through that experience has definitely made me, like, I see that having gone through that experience has given me kind of like a self-love and like a self-confidence that a lot of people don't have, right? Like, for example, even things like saying like I love you, I think there's men that like didn't grow up saying that, and I did, and or didn't grow up saying that, or it feels feminine, or it feels, or saying like, this baby's cute or whatever, kind of appreciating the soft side of beauty. I feel very free to be able to do it, and I feel like a lot of people don't, just because they have these cultural hang-ups. And I think going through the process of coming out gave me that confidence. I remember a friend in college, his name's Phil. He used to say, and this is before he knew I was gay, he used to say, I really admire gay people because they're just very brave to be who they are. And I think hearing that actually gave me the courage to actually come out. And so I think in beyond kind of the obvious way of how, what makes me, how is being gay play a role in my life, I think that having gone through the experience of being different has given me a lot of self-confidence.
I was about to ask you a completely different question, but something you just said has inspired me to ask you this. So you just mentioned that that there was someone who was speaking about gay people and the courage it takes for them to be who they are, and that moment inspired you to start to come out. Um, all these years later, what does that what does that moment mean to you in retrospect? And have you had the chance to tell that person what that experience meant to you?
Yeah, actually, I haven't told this person that, which I should. I think you'd appreciate hearing it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's something that I've kind of become increasingly aware of, that um, that having gone through this process gives you an additional freedom that a lot of people don't have, and that's kind of a side effect of being gay.
Um, so my final question to you, Gabe, and again, thank you for donating your time to being part of this project. It's been wonderful hearing you speak and to engage with your story. My final question, I'd like to go back to something you said earlier um, in our piece, where you said very proudly, "I'm going to change things. I'm going to change things." And I just wanted to ask Gabe, if you had your magic wand, what's one thing you would do to change things?
So this idea I've been cooking up, and that I hope to execute soon is I don't know if you grew up going to like machanot. Do you know like what a machane is? Like a camping trip with like a bunch
Yep,
of
yep.
young Jews or
I went on them through B'nai Akiva.
right, exactly. So I want to do one of those for Latin American Jews at some point in the future. I think that that would be an awesome Latin American gay Jews. I think that would be an awesome experience. Kind of like a retreat, which in the U.S. there's a lot of like gay Jewish retreats, but I don't think there are any that have brought together Latin American gay Jews.
That sounds like a wonderful initiative. If you were to put that, or I should say, when you do finally put that into reality, because that is something that is so needed, and I hope that the resources come together to make that happen very soon. Um, I'm just curious, do you think it's more likely to happen through the Jewish gay groups extending to Latin America, or the Latin American Jewish groups extending to the gay community, or the Latin gay community extending to the Jewish community?
I don't know, but that's a good question. And kind of you've just provided me kind of the first three doors to knock on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. It's a good question, and I would hope there would be excitement about it from all three sides.
Hmm. As I said, I really wish you the best in your endeavor, and um, I hope that there are people who are watching who are able to reach out to you and help to make this happen.
Great, great. Yeah, and also final word of thank you for putting this together and for inviting me to be a part of it. I hope the story, is first of all it was coherent. I don't know if I kind of like skipped around a bit too much, but hopefully it was somewhat coherent, and hopefully there's people that watch it that will find it meaningful.
It was very meaningful to me. I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Did you miss some of? Did I get cut off for you?
I got most of what you said. Um,
Okay. Yeah, I'll repeat just in hopes that I don't know if like the recording got me, but um, what I was saying is that I forget what I said. I think I was thanking you for putting this together and for inviting me. Um, and um, yeah, I think that's what I said.
uh, Thank you so much, Gabe, for again taking time to tell your story. I can say for myself, it's really interesting to hear um, the the journey that you've had, and there are pieces that I can certainly identify with, and there are others that weren't part of my journey, but that I have a huge curiosity about, and I'm inspired to do more research into those spaces afterwards, particularly in the Latin American community. Um, so, do you have any final parting words?
No, I think so. My final parting words, I think now I remember, what I was saying is that I hope that whoever watches this finds it meaningful, and that hopefully it either makes them feel less alone, or helps them connect, helps them relate, and maybe it'll also help bring together more of a Latin American gay Jewish community.
Here's to sharing our story in this moment and in many more moments in the future. Thank you, Gabe.
I think you got cut off, but I guess thank you again, and I look forward to watching this once it goes public, and to watching the other ones that you've recorded.
Thank you. And I'll just finish off by saying, here's to sharing our story in this moment and in many more moments in the future. Thank you, Gabe.
Amen.